Welcome to the Mystery of Life. I'm Jo.
And I'm Jonny.
And today we're asking, who was Pazuzu Algarad?
I'll tell you one thing, he was a dude with a fucking cool name.
Oh dear. Well, this is our first episode of 2023, so Happy New Year. I'm kind of starting off on a very grim note, I suppose. But, you know, look, it works. It's not really a mystery, though, so I haven't ticked any boxes for this one. There is answers, but it's one of those ones, every now and again, I come across something that we sort of know what happened, but it's a story I think that we should talk about. So, who was Pazuzu Algarad? Well, it may not surprise you to learn that this was not the name he was born with.
No, that would be pretty far out parents to name their kid Pazuzu.
Yeah, he was born John Alexander Lawson.
Oh, so Pazuzu's an option for me.
Yeah, in 1978. We don't know very much about his early life, although there is a bit of a question mark over what we do know, because apparently he would often sort of reinvent parts of his childhood. So it actually became quite difficult to separate kind of fact from fiction.
Yeah,
but I've done my best, and, you know, so has everyone. Now, we do know he was born in San Francisco and moved to North Carolina when he was around 2. At the age of 8, his parents split up. Now, I mention this because it may or may not be, you know, like a trigger for him. When psychologists ask you about your childhood, I know it's joked about a lot, but it does matter. Like, you know, what happened to you when you were younger can affect you. But, you know, also, I'm a child of divorce and I'm fine. So...
Well, yeah, but I've been plenty fucked up by things that happened in my childhood.
Yeah. So it may or may not be relevant. So I'll mention it. We can, you know, you can decide for yourself whether that was a turning point for him, because it seemed that his father moved back to California and that was basically the end of that relationship. So that possibly was more important than the fact that they were divorced, the fact that his dad, in essence, left and that was the end of it. We don't fully know why.
Maybe because his kid was a nutter.
How bad could it have been aged 8? Like, I always wonder this about, like, the really evil ones. Like,
Yeah, but when does it start?
Well, this is it, isn't it? And we both watched that Jeffrey Dahmer thing recently. And you have to say that, like, I think they probably could have intervened. And, like, not necessarily, like, stopped him, but, yeah, maybe stopped him. You could at least maybe have saved some lives. I don't know. I just think early intervention is possible. Now, education was a challenge. He actually had to retake 2nd grade, which is year 3 in the UK. So... I mean, things did go wrong early. Because can you imagine having to retake year 3? In year 3, I remember, like, sitting on the carpet and being read a story.
Being so bad that's really underdeveloped. That speaks more to abuse than stupidity.
I also think he was quite naughty, so it wasn't necessarily a level of intelligence. Although clearly there's a question mark.
Yeah, they don't, like, even if you're naughty, if you're doing well enough educationally, they're not going to just hold you back. His development was slow.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, so clearly there's problems, you know. Apparently he would tell people things like he was from Iraq, which he wasn't, and that his father was a high priest, which he wasn't.
Yeah, but how old was he when he was saying this? Because there's a difference.
Yeah, like we're getting to sort of, you know, 10 onwards, and as a grown-up.
Well, when he's a grown-up, that's weird. When he's a kid, kids do that shit. Like,
well, I wonder if you started it as a kid.
There's a kid like 10 near me that you should pretend to ride a fake horse. We didn't call the...
No, but I wonder if most of us grow out of stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I wonder if he started it and then just continued it.
There's a lack of development, and he's acting. He's never got beyond that point. He's never got beyond being a child in his brain. I mean, who changes their name to Pazuzu?
Well, when he was around 12 years old, his mum Cynthia remarried, and apparently this didn't go down all that well, at least for John. They moved to Clemmons in North Carolina on, you'll enjoy this, Nob Hill Drive.
Fucking excellent.
I mean, like, that, I just felt like that was a house doomed. Like, who names these roads?
No, I'm sorry, but that is not a doomed name. Nob Hill, that's just a fun, like, that is adding 50 grand to the selling price for me.
Really? That's ridiculous. Who's naming these streets? Who's going around thinking...
There's a village near us called Nasty.
Ugly.
And Ugly.
Yeah, exactly. Who's naming them?
I don't know who's naming them, but... Do you not think that there's a premium because of their funny names?
No, I think they probably lose value because you're people standing taking pictures of your street signs all the time.
No, I'd love to live in Nasty.
Oh dear. Anyway, now by
Cockbush Avenue, Nasty.
By age 13, John, as he was at the time, had a drinking problem. Apparently, he was drinking a pack of beer a day. Now, I mean, that's pretty deep.
Depends on your definition of a pack.
I think it's about 12.
Oh, yeah, that's too much.
But even if it was 4, age 13, every day.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said 18. No, 13 is ridiculous.
No, 13.
There's no acceptable amount of beer per day for a 13-year-old.
No. And also, I know where you're going with this. When you're 18, you have periods of time where you are drinking every day. But
well, no,
you grow out of that. And also, most people can't handle the hangovers after a certain age.
Yeah,
so.
It's more about how, like, the damaging level of alcoholism. Because, like, if he's having, like, 1 beer every single day, that's still, I'd argue, alcoholism.
No, well, apparently he was suffering with abandonment issues. So this is where I feel he obviously had issues with the fact that his father had all but disappeared, although we don't know the ins and outs of why. And then obviously Cynthia is now remarried, so perhaps he feels like she's replaced him in some way. Now, in fairness to Cynthia, she did take him to a medical centre, and it's not 100% clear exactly when this happened. It was somewhere around this time, and apparently he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which would make sense, but I didn't think they could diagnose that when you were all that young either. I thought that was something that very much came out later. But anyway, this needs to be medicated, obviously, quite heavily, and apparently she couldn't afford it. So,
God bless America.
Yeah, right. There was also some reports suggested that any drugs he ever was given, he found a way to abuse. But I really don't know how you can abuse schizophrenia drugs. I don't know. I'm sure there's ways.
He won't have just been given, like, antipsychotics. He would have been given a whole... Like, it's America. If they're paying, we would have been given a whole plethora of, like, whatever drugs, like, they paid, like, they'll push drugs on him.
Well, it didn't happen for very long.
Sedatives,
they couldn't afford it. And as we know, healthcare in America is very expensive. So
African America
I have
is
to
fucking
say, though,
stupid.
Even in this country where we wouldn't have to pay for mental health treatment, it's still piss poor.
No,
it doesn't necessarily mean...
I will not allow people to say that. The NHS is not free. It's free at the point of use. We pay for it in a monthly tax. That is fine. I like it that way. I'm not having a go at it. But I will not let people come under this assumption that the NHS is free.
No, but what I'm getting at is if you needed help, you would get it, in the sense that you could... the fact that you can't afford medicine is not a thing in this country.
No.
If you don't have the money, they will give it to you.
Yeah. And if you do have the money, they give it to you at a reduced rate.
It's £9 for a prescription.
There's no fucking you over. But yeah, we basically have a level of health insurance that we pay every month.
But I mean, even then, even with the fact that you could have gone and got medication, it's not always easy. Still getting to see someone and get a diagnosis of something like schizophrenia in this country is not straightforward. Don't get me wrong, I would still rather do it here than America, unless I was rich, in which case it's like paying private here. So, but even so, right, where I'm going with this is that he was diagnosed, but you've still got to force someone to take that medication, even if they had the money. It's not enough to just throw pills at it and hope it goes away. But he was unmedicated. So now he repeated 9th grade, which was year 10 in the UK.
Oh my God, he's going to leave school when he's 30.
No, at that point he dropped out.
Yeah, I would have too.
Yeah, to be fair.
It's not his thing. That ain't for him. Let's just...
To be fair, I think he did well. If he repeated year 2 or year 3, I'm so...
anyway, he's obviously got some level of intelligence, but there's obviously a struggle there somewhere, and the education system isn't right for him.
Well, apparently he'd also been bullied because he smelled bad. Oh, well, now, I have to say, are we starting to judge the mum a bit here? I know, you shouldn't judge and all that, but
yeah, definitely.
I just feel like
keep stopping your kid from smelling is basically free. Yeah. So,
and they weren't desolate. I know they didn't have the money for healthcare, but that's one thing. But she had a home, she had a husband, they had jobs. You could afford a bar of soap.
Yeah, it's setting your kid up as well. At that age, he's going to get bullied, so don't let him get bullied by smelling.
And also, who's buying him this beer?
Maybe he's one of those dudes that look really old.
I don't know. I just feel like I know that children can be difficult to control.
Maybe the stepfather or the mother is actually buying him beer.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's a massive guess. So no offense to anyone, I don't know whether that's true.
Well, it becomes true. So he got into drugs, as you might imagine. Things were pretty bad for him, and it's easy to see how he fell into this. By the end, everything, including heroin and meth. So it's not just your fun party drugs. It's a life change. It's serious. And he was buying and selling drugs. I mean, I'm assuming at this point you'd kind of to support such a habit. I guess it makes sense that you'd have to start selling them.
Yeah, totally.
So in 2002, his mum got divorced again. So now it's just the two of them living on the house on Nob Hill Drive. And this is when his mum and his friends say that's when they noticed a change in him. Now, I know that hindsight is 20/20, but I feel like everything up until this point, has that not already been a bit of a cry for help?
Well, yeah, but they're obviously okay with it. So any behaviour that he did have would be a change.
Well, he started to get into the occult and Satanism. Now, no judgment on the whole with Satanism. If I've said this before. First of all,
if you're interested in the occult as a subject, all gravy. If you get into the occult, meaning you believe that shit, you need help.
It's not even just that. What I was going to say was Satanism as a religion is actually not harmful, and they went out of their way to tell people that they wanted nothing to do with this guy when it all kicked off. I'll go into that later in another. I want to do a blog post about sort of Satanism and this, that and the other to do with it. But again, what I've always said as well is that if whatever you're doing isn't hurting anyone else, fine. But how long do you think it went on before he started hurting other people?
Oh, about a week.
Yeah, not long. So in 2002, he legally changes his name to Pazuzu Algarad.
Oh, it gets better.
Now, Pazuzu is the name of a demon from The Exorcist. He's like king of the demons and...
Right, so he's obviously a nutter. No.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to be a demon. Like, he was very much trying to be a demon. Pazuzu is... Ila Algarad means Lord of the Locusts in Arabic.
He's a fucking idiot. Why did he pick Arabic?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, right. So if you want a weird name, but you've been diagnosed with mental illness and you're into hard drugs, I feel like someone should just keep an eye on him.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've changed your name to the name of a demon and clearly you're troubled. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you're going to go out and do awful things, but I just feel like someone should just check in on him every now and again.
He needs a little bit of supervision, I feel.
Yeah. Well, bear in mind, he was still living with his mum.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he got any form of supervision.
No, none at all. He started tattooing his own face, and I'm not talking... I've not got any problem with face tattoos, as you well know. I mean, you've got one, and I'm sure would have more if you could. But he did it himself, so you can imagine the kind of like level of quality. And he was doing it to make himself look scary for all the wrong reasons. He wanted to. Apparently, he lived in quite a Christian town, and he wanted to scare people.
Yeah, I get it just because I think it's fun.
He also had the word Satan tattooed on his arm in big letters. So he was doing it to be provocative, and he was doing it all himself. These weren't like professional tattoos.
No, I don't think he was doing it to be provocative.
Well, no, he said he wanted to be a demon and that he liked scaring people. So
I don't think he's intelligent enough to be provocative. I think he truly meant it. I don't think there's any provocation intended. He just was telling people the fact that he wants to be a demon.
Yeah.
I think he thought it was a possible thing.
Well, he filed his teeth into a point with a Dremel. So he didn't go to a professional to get it done. He did it by himself.
Again, I've got no problem with someone doing that.
No.
But to get a professional to do it, guys, not with a Dremel, that'll fucking...
Also, all of these things, like, by themselves, alone, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, if you want a weird name, great, fine. If you're not hurting anyone else, great.
To be honest, even the combination of all of them isn't a bad thing.
No, and he's not done anything illegal yet. Okay,
yeah, I feel like he rushed into this. He needed someone to be like, right. Let's like, oh, cool. Let's make a list and let's step through it slowly. Let's not go from 0 to 100. Let's change your name first, see how that sits. Then we'll do the teeth thing. And then maybe in a couple of years, we'll do the face tattoos.
Yeah,
I'll allow you the Satan one on your arm because you can cover it. But the face tattoos, I reckon we should do I'm not saying don't do any of these things. I'm saying do it the right way, mate.
But I feel like as well, it's not about... I've got no issue in the sense that he wants to change the way he looks. Like, there's that guy, isn't there, who owns the Guinness World Record for the most body modifications. And he has, like... his whole face tattooed, and he split his tongue, which, by the way, Pazuzu does shortly.
No problem with that. I quite like it.
No, exactly. And he had the whole like teeth implants thing, but he did it all professionally over time. He has a job, a stable life. Like, he's a really nice guy. He's not doing it for anyone other than himself. Now, whatever you think of him, that's his life, and he's getting on with it, and he's fine, and he's happy. But Pazuzu clearly was not.
Yeah, I think the best way to explain it is there's a sane way to do crazy things.
Yeah, that's good.
And I object to no one doing crazy things.
No, I know you don't. Well, however, for Pazuzu, I think the next warning sign was the fact that he stopped washing and cleaning. He said that he believed this made him closer to Satan, and that the dirt gave him special powers and protected him from illness.
Again, we're in this like intent kind of like sanity versus insanity where like I'm so liberal that I don't give a shit if you wash or not. Like, I can avoid you.
You know what's coming. So you know I'm leading up to something with this.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, so far, everything up to now, I'm cool with. The pace is a little bit much for me. But yeah, he's done nothing wrong. Mm. He's not harming me.
He stopped brushing his teeth. Now, I'm surprised that he had teeth if he was doing meth and didn't brush them. But Yeah, there we go. Now, apparently by 2006, he was diagnosed with I can't say this word. Agoraphobia, the one where you're afraid of crowds and going outside.
Yeah.
He was treated in an inpatient facility for 2 months. So he did get some level of help. But then he came out. And if anything, things got worse.
Because if it's not backed up with outpatient,
Yeah.
like it's all well and like it's all well and good having him as an inpatient, but he's an agoraphobe.
He did go outside on occasion, but 2 months was not enough because he came back and it was like nothing had changed. Now, when I say he would go outside on occasion, that was because on the full moon, his mum would go out and buy him a live rabbit. He would take his rabbit to the river. He would sacrifice his rabbit and he would eat its heart. Now, I've got to say, I'm a bit worried about mum.
Yeah, that's fucked up. And I'll tell you why it's fucked up, and it's not for the reason that most people are going, that's fucked up. My only issue with it was the way they obtained the rabbit.
I'm sorry? How else are you going to obtain a rabbit?
Hunting.
There can't be that many rabbits available for every full moon.
Every 4 minutes, 12.
Yeah, but like to hunt.
People hunt rabbit all the time. There's loads of them. Go to a field in England in the morning and just see all those little brown heads pop up.
Well, I don't really like the idea.
Yeah.
That he has to
I don't like
hunt
the
it.
idea that he's bought this animal bred for as a pet that was going to have this cushy life.
Wouldn't you start to question the mum though? If you were the pet shop owner, back again on a full moon. What happened to your last rabbit?
Yeah, like you're getting through these rabbits quick.
Yeah.
If she went to the same pet shop, we're assuming that she could have gone.
Yeah,
to several.
I don't know that she didn't go to several pet shops, and I do think that pet shops have gotten better in the last few years, haven't they? In like taking records and names, they didn't always do that.
But you've got a whole month. Set a trap. Get a natural one. Like do it the huntery way. Like get an animal that's living a hard life. Don't take one that's made it.
Well, he declared his love for Charles Manson. Now, again, I feel like a lot of this is just warning signs for bad things to come by themselves, not necessarily like one.
No. We've reached the point where we're not okay anymore.
No, obviously you shouldn't be in love with Charles Manson.
No,
I'm just saying
that there's no justifying that.
Well, he's not in love with Charles Manson, I should say, but he declared it in a way that like saw him as a bit of a hero.
Yeah, no, that's not right. That's fucked up.
And he decided to create his own religion and build his own little family. And somehow he found followers who came and went from this house. So he said he created a new religion, which was a mix of Luciferianism, which I actually Googled how to say, and I still can't say it right, and Islam. And he said he thought it would scare people.
Oh, yeah, but you can't just do that.
No. Well, I mean, to be fair, the fact that you said you've created a new religion, it meant nothing because he didn't create it outside of the house. So it wasn't like he was going and getting charitable status and building a church.
I've created a new religion. It's part Rastafarian.
Well, apparently you've just done that.
Part Muslim. Like religions aren't interchangeable like pieces.
Well, that's what he did. So
it's not a Lunchable.
Well, people were encouraged to join, and he referred to his followers as the misfits and outcasts. And he would put notices up on the door to keep police away and explain his life choices, and friends would come round and were encouraged to do whatever you wanted. Now, Mum was confined to the bedroom at this point, and I just feel like...
Now, hold on. I've just had a thought as you say that. We were quite hard on the mum. Given this man's behaviour, we should have probably assumed first that in some way he's got control over her.
Well... Yeah,
I know
possibly.
that she's been a bad mum, but let's not assume at this point that she's like willingly going along with being stuck in the bedroom buying rabbits all the time.
But could she, if she was scared, could she not have said to the rabbit man, "Please call the police, I'm scared"?
We know that just because there's opportunity doesn't mean they always do it. People have been held for years and were able to go outside.
And the child-mother bond is possibly the strongest one.
Yeah.
So...
I'm not saying she's not bad. I'm just saying that he could, at this point, be more controlling.
Well, she was confined to the bedroom because the rest of the house got pretty gross pretty fast.
It's gonna.
Well, he enjoyed the dirt. He refused to use a toilet after a certain point. He took to literally taking down his pants and doing a poo on the floor in the corner of the room in front of all of his friends. Like, this was perfectly normal. He would just wee and poo all over the floor.
No, again, I'm going to come with a weird objection here. Location.
Yeah, but you'd have to get up to go to the floor. I don't know.
It's that he's doing it inside. I don't care if you use the toilet or not. I don't care if you're dirty. Don't do it in front of me, and don't do it on a surface that's hard to clean.
But they don't clean it. It just sits there.
Exactly. So what? Like instead of like creating a problem,
and they had a garden. He could have gone out in the garden if he wanted to be like free and one with nature.
He could have like gone out into the garden, pooped, and made a pile of it, and eventually it'd all go away. Like,
Yeah, well, it didn't go away. It got matted into the carpet.
well, obviously, it's not gonna.
It must have stunk in that house.
Yeah, but you get to that point, don't you, where you just can't hear it
God,
or smell it. Sorry.
Yeah, but just oh
yeah. Anyone walking in that's never been there would be. Are we even sure the mum was alive at this point?
Yeah, no, she was. That continues. But he would organise. Well, I should say he then spiritually married, but not in any way legal, just legal in his little religion at home.
Yeah, but what is legal?
Well, sure, in his home it was legal. He married Amber Birch, known as Bubbles, and Crystal Matlock. And he and his friends would, they'd do whatever they wanted. Everyone would sort of come and go. He then took to trying to organise orgies within the house, which, by the way, I'm fine with. But again, I don't understand who these people that are coming in and thinking, oh, yeah, let's go to an orgy, and there's a big pile of shit in the corner. You can do it in a nice, clean room.
I think you need to spend some time on the darker parts of the internet, my dear. I can easily imagine there being enough people that were into that for an orgy.
That's just
easily.
Yeah, but even if you enjoy like that side of it, surely like weeks old poop in the corner.
Easily.
Oh. And they're all high, obviously, on like heroin.
Well, that makes it even easier because you don't give a fuck. They don't even probably notice.
They would go out and gather in graveyards for bloodletting sessions. They had now started to drink each other's blood.
Now, again, location. Poop outdoors. Bloodletting, don't do in public spaces. This is what's annoying me about this. Is like, so far everything's a bit shitty, but nothing's like arrestable or
no.
I mean, they just let them be horrible to themselves.
Yeah,
it is a major warning sign. The Charles Manson stuff. That's like major. Like, he may murder people. Let's keep an eye on him. But as long as they keep doing what they're doing, they're fine. But they're fucking up the location of all these things.
Well, he seemed to become quite a bad neighbour as well. He would play loud music, metal music, which of course, in a small Christian town where you've got a guy that's named himself after a demon, you know, people are panicked. But apparently it got worse. People would not just, the whole like bloodletting thing wasn't where it started. People would then come around and sort of self-harm. And people reported later, when all this came out and people started talking about it, that they remembered seeing people just with like laying on the sofa with like blood coming out their arms, just like passed out. And it's like, I just don't know that this is all right.
I mean, all right, strong word, but again, like, just each to their own, I suppose. Don't think we're losing any cures for cancer over there, so just let them do what they want to do. I'm not bothering me again. Like, as long as it's all choice.
Well, he started telling stories about killing prostitutes, but everyone was high and figured this was just part of the drama.
Well, now he's getting more culpable than everyone else. He's like sort of urging people to do stuff. So
he did become.
I'm getting less on board with this behaviour, because before it was kind of like, come over, do our own shit. Now he's like, let's murder people.
He wasn't necessarily encouraging the murder, but he was encouraging the bloodletting, and like apparently they started drinking the blood of animals as well. So he would like cut the head off a bird and drink the blood.
Oh, the
and
diseases
he'd, like,
in
have
this
blood
house.
all over his face. Yeah, I don't know how he must have actually been protected from illness, because I don't know how, with all the poop and blood.
Like,
sex
a normal
everywhere.
human being would need a hazmat suit just to go in.
They
there.
did when they went in afterwards. They were in full like gear.
Like, that is.
Apparently, he started to try and control people. He said that he was controlling the weather, and he said that he enjoyed scaring people. So he's now taken on this kind of
he's a cult leader
role. Yeah. And there was one incident where a guy was apparently so desperate for painkillers, a doctor wouldn't prescribe them. That's quite common when you're known to have a drug problem. In America, They won't hand over the good drugs. And he was like apparently round there complaining about it. So Pazuzu just cut off his finger. I mean, like, that's the solution. But he was just in charge at this point, and I think probably getting a bit drunk on power.
I'd say you're drunk on power when you're cutting off fingers for minor offences.
People did point out they never saw him again, but they also never found a body. So I'm not necessarily, it's pure speculation, but there were people apparently that would just come into this house and then never be seen again. But also on that note, I feel like if I went into that house, I'd be like, nope, and I'd never be seen again. I realised I wouldn't even get as far as the front porch, but
there's probably a chance he ran away and never came back.
Yeah.
With all these activities and the hygiene, there's got to be people that died there, and he's got to have dealt with them some way.
In May 2010, he actually tried to choke his mum. So now she's in sort of proper danger. Not to mention she's like wading through shit every time she comes out of her room and going to work.
Yeah, see, I think the mum has been guilty in the past of neglecting this child, but now is a victim of this child.
Well, she would still buy the rabbits, and she bought him a 12-pack of beer every day. She worked 2 jobs just to provide for him.
Yeah. This is a hostage. This is someone like that feels like they've got no choice other than to do this.
She didn't press charges, and in 2011, Amber actually assaulted her and was arrested. But again, Cynthia didn't press charges, said she knows she didn't mean to do it and forgave her.
Well,
Yeah.
it depends if she said it with passion or whether it was a very blank repeat in a script.
I still feel like at this point, police have seen the home in the sense that they went there to arrest people, even though they didn't like go in and search it or anything. They know that stuff's going on. I just feel like someone should just get a social worker around there once a week, just to make sure everything's all right, even if it's gross.
There's no children, though.
I know, but you can still have adults get social care. I don't know if they do in America, but they do here.
I think maybe the police should have kept an eye on them from a distance, like send a patrol round every now and again. But they've done nothing illegal.
I know, but...
And it'd be a waste of fucking time and
I
energy.
suppose.
There's no one asking for help there. It's a fucking crack den.
Well, people did start talking to the police a little bit more after this. In a house full of people, he explained that he only murdered people on full moons. This is Pazuzu, because the religion that he had created, that was the rule. You murdered on a full moon. Fine. He claimed to have killed a lot of prostitutes, but one night he told them that he had killed someone. He'd shot them, that they were in the basement, dead, covered in cat litter and chlorine. But everyone was high, and no one really thought anything of it. But the next day, someone was, less high and remembered seeing a couple of them walking around with shovels. So she started to think, well, maybe, is there a chance that he's telling the truth? So she went to the police and reported that she had been told there was a body in the basement covered in chlorine and cat litter, but nothing happens. I feel like, wouldn't you just go around and check it out?
Yeah, but look who's going to say it. This is a problem in all police. The witness has to be credible.
Well, she goes back.
Some crackhead saying like crackhead things isn't going to make them jump.
No. She goes back and actually records Pazuzu saying he'd killed someone in the house, but still no one did anything. And this kind of makes him feel pretty untouchable. The house just gets worse and worse. There was another couple of anonymous tips to the police, but they do nothing with it. And very much like you said, I think it is the fact that these are people that are inside the home. So obviously they've got problems as well, because even people that really like dark stuff don't sit in a room full of piss and shit.
No,
they just don't.
There's a limit. Yeah, I don't think it's right. But I think that is just the cold hard fact that these people were ignored because of their status and because of where of their association with him.
Yeah. Now, in 2010, the body of Joseph Chandler was found by the river in a neighbouring county. He had been shot, incidentally, on the night of a full moon. And after investigation in 2011, Pazuzu was actually charged with accessory to murder after the fact. It was his friend Nick Rizzo, who had been staying and visiting the horrible house, who was convicted of the murder, but Pazuzu had been present. So he hadn't fired the gun, told anyone about it, and then had obviously housed a criminal. So he got 2 years probation.
Yeah, but look at the things Charles Manson got people to do.
Yeah.
So this is like...
There's a question mark as to how involved he really was.
I mean, I can understand why police didn't investigate him, but I would have thought because this is becoming a cult, the FBI at some point would have started an investigation, because they investigate all cults.
Yeah. I just feel like I had so many opportunities to just keep a better eye on what was going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was given 2 years probation and apparently didn't get all that much he wasn't checked up on. Obviously, with probation, you're meant to sort of check in, but it was all very kind of, he'd never been in trouble before because which always surprised people, but despite all of this like grossness in the house, he hadn't done anything illegal. Like, okay, drugs are illegal, sure, but like police don't spend their time going after the heroin.
They don't care if you do them, they care if you sell them.
Yeah. So yes, sure, okay, but that wasn't really. I understand why police weren't looking into that. You could argue that with sort of crack houses all over the world, couldn't you? So I get that, but otherwise, all of this disgusting stuff that he's doing, it's not illegal to piss and shit in your own home and then have orgies on the floor.
No,
as gross as that sounds, it's not. So. They did get another anonymous tip, and apparently at this point, police do actually execute a search warrant on Pazuzu's house, and they take cadaver dogs. But they don't find anything.
But I will say, like, I don't think the cadaver dogs were useless.
No, yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that. The smell in that house must have been overwhelming.
Yeah, there's no way they're going to identify a dead body with that. Like, no one is trained. Like, that is beyond normal, so they're never trained for it.
Apparently, as well, they had a lot of animals in the house because they used them for sacrifice, and there was like animal feces and dead animals. Yeah,
like the smell of death is pretty much the same for all animals, so they do struggle. Like, I don't think they're very good at determining the death of an animal versus a human so much.
No, I mean, I don't know the...
When it's surrounded by shit, piss, and all other sort of like matter, that's going to be overwhelming.
Yeah, so I'm not all that surprised. I am a bit surprised. Again, they didn't do anything illegal, so it's hard to get your head around that, isn't it? You know, the police have been in there and they're just like, okay, bye, and you sort of think, why are you not doing more? But then what could they do? You know, they've done a search warrant now. They didn't find anything. They've got to let this guy get on with his crappy life.
Why should they at this point?
Yeah.
They've done their duty, sort of. They have neglected some warnings, but they've gone, they've checked. There's been a cadaver dog.
So then an old friend returns. Now, Matt Flowers, he had... What's funny about that?
Oh, God. Matt Flowers sounds like he's going to turn up in in a tan business suit.
No. He'd been away. He'd joined the army. So he had been part of the sort of party scene, very early days in Pazuzu's kind of time.
When it was fun.
When he was a bit into drugs and knew some of the people that were there. But then he sort of, when he was 19, he thought, right, you know, I'm going to grow up a bit. And he joined the army and off he went. Now, he was back in the country and a sort of ex-girlfriend type person rang him and said that when she'd been at Pazuzu's house, she had seen Amber and Pazuzu bury a body in the backyard. So Matt comes around to visit and he goes back to the house and he says, the house is worse than ever. You now can't see the floor. You can't stand the smell unless you've been inhabited in it. He couldn't go in. Like, it was just awful. And you literally, there was piles and piles of trash and mold where stuff had just been left to rot and like just poo trodden into the floor, animal cages that were like overflowing with animal feces and dead animals everywhere.
Nice.
So they'd started drawing on the walls. There were satanic symbols all over the walls in blood and poop. And it was just grim. So he goes in and talks to Pazuzu. And Pazuzu's like, yep, tells him all the stories that he's been telling everyone else, killed prostitutes. He tells the story about the guy that was in the basement and he says that, yeah, we've killed people. So Matt goes to police and police don't do anything with this. They say, we've searched his house. Like, there's nothing else we can do. That's that. Nothing really happens for a little while. He goes away. He keeps in touch. Matt's curious. He wants to find out what's going on. He is then told, oh, I should mention as well, the police do pop round at one point and say to Pazuzu, have you killed anyone? And Pazuzu says no. He says, have you got any bodies buried in the garden? And Pazuzu says no. And police go, okay. So they do keep in touch, the police, I should mention. Whilst they didn't execute a second search warrant or anything at that point, they pop round.
Again, what more can they do?
But also, I feel like, why bother even going if you're just going to take his word for it?
There's not even a missing person. So, you can't just go around and go, there's a dead
there's plenty of missing people, but there's no one to link them to this. No.
Associated with this.
No.
And you can't just go around and go, there's a dead body in that person's garden, and the police barge their fucking way in.
No, I know.
Just because they're weird doesn't mean they lose their rights.
Well, in 2014, Pazuzu asks his ex-friend Matt Flowers to help him murder someone. Apparently, he speaks to Matt quite often, somewhat obsessed with the idea that Matt might have killed people in the Iraq War. He says that he's going to murder someone at a party that night, and he tells him that he was going to rape someone. So Matt goes to the party and tells the guy he was going to murder and the woman he was going to rape to get the fuck out. So that was nice.
I like Matt.
Yeah, I like Matt.
Matt's turned things around.
And then he goes to the police and tells the police all of this. He tells the police again that there's definitely bodies buried in the garden and that if police don't do something about it in the next week, he's going to get a shotgun, go around there and take care of it himself. And police listen. And I feel like finally...
Again, credible,
ex-military. Yeah, he's now... Exactly. He's turned his life around. He's been in the army. He's persevered with this. And now he's got something that's actually just happened. You know, the fact that he was asked to take part in a murder and the fact that he was told he was going to rape someone. So they execute a second search warrant at this point, and they find the skeletal remains of Josh Wetzler and Tommy Welsh in the back garden. Josh and Tommy were both reported missing, one from slightly over county lines, so we know that makes it difficult in America. You've got different police forces, but they were never linked to this house or any of these people. So you understand, like you said, if you've got nothing to link it there, but they were reported missing in 2009, and this is 2014.
So this has gone on for a while.
Yeah.
And again, they're not targeting their own people.
No, they find evidence.
Their victims are so like white bread that there's nothing to distinguish them or make them linked. They're going to be random if they are. They're not going to worry too much. Girl, male, old, young. They're just going to want a body to sacrifice.
Yeah. They found evidence of chlorine and bleach and cat litter in the basement where the body was supposedly kept before it was buried. The council went in, so obviously Amber and Pazuzu are arrested. The council go in and films the house, and I'll put a link to that on the blog because everything that we've said, everything that you're imagining, I promise it's worse than what you're imagining. It was so gross. They found 15 cats, several dogs, flies everywhere, alive and just piles of dead ones. They found multiple snakes and other animals that Pazuzu was using to sacrifice. They found swastikas on the ceiling, satanic symbols everywhere. It was literally the epitome of a shithole.
It's so basic Satanist, though, in some ways. Like, oh, let's put some swastikas up. Oh, there's a pentagram.
Well,
I guess a new shtick.
After they've arrested Pazuzu and Amber, they can't actually come up with a motive for the deaths. And they still haven't really, but they did find out a bit more about what happened. Cynthia actually reported that she saw Pazuzu standing over the body with a shovel, walked back into her room, got ready, and went to work. And when she came back, the body was gone and nobody talked about it.
Well, yeah, this is a cult at this point. He's in charge and do whatever he likes.
Pazuzu had shot Josh. Josh was the first victim, and he wore his bloodied bandana for weeks as a trophy. Supposedly, he'd kept Josh in the basement for some time, chained up and starved before shooting him. Amber was the one that picked up Tommy, and she had shot him. So they were both charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of accessory after the fact because they helped the other bury their kill. In October 2015, Pazuzu never made it to trial because he was found dead in his cell, having bled to death. But they never found the weapon. They think it was, well, the rumour mill thinks, like no one ever specified what the weapon was. They never found it. They just said that he'd bled to death and it was believed to be a suicide. But most people think that they'd used his filed teeth to open up an artery because apparently he'd always talked about how if he was ever arrested, that's what he would do. And I guess if it was that sharp, it wouldn't take much to
not
to
at
do
all.
that. So, especially, obviously, he's used to opening up blood and stuff because they've been doing, like, drinking each other's blood and things like that. Like,
That's very believable.
Yeah, so that was the end of Pazuzu. Amber Birch got a minimum of 39 years, and Crystal was also found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. She got 3 years. The house was so awful that it was deemed unfit for human habitation and was demolished in 2015, and the lot sits empty. But it does make you wonder about other victims because obviously he spoke about so many and only 2 were found in the property. But surely there's got to have been more. Like, what, you think he killed 2 people in 2009 and that was the end of it?
Yeah, I see very little chance of that happening. He's got to have done more.
Yeah, just they were the only 2 in the house.
And I think when he was just, like, we were at the point where he was just saying this, like, yeah, he could just be making it all up. But as, like, everything he said has become true, like, even the cat litter and the chlorine, I think we got to give a lot of weight to everything he said and look like there's probably a lot more bodies.
Yeah, and we'll never know now.
And there's probably, like, bodies on his behalf as well. There's probably other parts of that cult that went out and did it too.
There's got to have been. Because you've got to have had a pretty serious belief in this guy just to have stayed around.
Unless it was literally just a crackdown and these people were around but not really lucid or doing anything or contributing.
I think there's probably some people that literally didn't have a clue what was going on, popped in, got some drugs, slept
because
the
it's
night
not
and
like
left.
they didn't seem to do many. Like, I had one ritual. Being in the room cracked out isn't the same as participating.
No. I think the main ones were the ones that obviously Pazuzu didn't make it to trial, but Crystal and Amber did. Everyone else, I mean, yeah, Cynthia never faced any kind of charges, which, I don't know. I mean, Cynthia, in a documentary after, said that everyone falls out with their children. She acknowledged that he had some mental problems, but that he wasn't a bad guy. And it was pointed out that the state failed a number of people, which I do sort of agree with.
Yeah, like I said, there should have been safeguarding measures put into place a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like, you know, a lot of people get on the police at this, and it's because it's hard when you know how this ends. It's hard to look back and think of all the people that were telling the police stuff, and the police were just like, yeah. But then, literally, from a legal point of view, like you said, what could they do? They took dogs around there, and they didn't find anything.
There's got to be a crime, and their failure, and only failure really, was taking too long to take anyone seriously and assuming that because these people were what they deemed below them, that they couldn't be trusted.
Yeah, and I think it goes back further than that. If you had intervened sooner
and that's what I was going to say, but the real failures here are further back, parental level from when he was a kid up until he was in school. There's no way he was drinking at 14 and going to school and no one fucking noticed and no one did anything about it.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about the teachers.
Like there's so many safeguarding things that should have kicked in that didn't, that led to this. And I don't think he was this insane psychopath. And I'm not crediting him with any intelligence towards what he did. The way I see what happened was he was completely let down by a system. He received no meaningful education. This guy is thick as shit. He started abusing drugs and alcohol. He affected the way he thought. He chose the darker side of life and really delved into it. I think he somewhat believed it, but I don't think he ever intended to create a cult or influence anyone. I think that was all accidental and part of his stupidity. I think he just had a shitty house and somehow found people that were like, oh, I'll go, like, because of the allowing the drugs and anyone to do anything. And I don't think he ever planned, like, I'm going to start a cult, I'm going to become the leader. I think he stumbled into all of this.
Yeah, I think he was happy when he became the leader.
Yeah, no doubt. But I don't think
whatever happiness is in this.
I don't want to give him the credit of, like, say, some of the bigger cult leaders who clearly.
Oh yeah, I do think Charles Manson sat down with a plan. Like
exactly, I think a mad psychotic plan, but he had a plan. This dude.
Yeah.
Was a little bit nuts, which like led to some of his weirder behaviours, but ultimately was just stupid and angry.
Yeah.
He wasn't this big, glorious leader. He was just a nutter.
It's just, I think that's just it. I think it's just the failures that make this such an interesting story. It's a bit of a car crash story. It's one of those ones where it's like there's so many things wrong, but you can't not hear it. You know, I don't know. And it's easy to blame the mum and the authorities, but there were so many people that suffered from this.
The mum failed her, but I think ultimately there was a level of Stockholm syndrome and motherly guilt. And fear that kept her there, and just maybe she just kept hoping things would get better.
Actual practicing Satanists spoke out about this and distanced themselves from it and said it's not what they believe in, and that they acknowledge he needed help. And as I say, I will do a blog post on Satanism at some point. Apparently they feel like they're always a scapegoat for people who seem scary, which I sort of get, because this is always billed as like the dirty, satanic, weird.
True Satanism, there is nothing overly bad about it or inherently evil. They don't go out and do the things that the ones that say they're Satanists do.
They don't murder people on a full moon. Oh, you got anything else on Pazuzu?
Cool name, shit person.
Well, it was a very dark start to January, so welcome. We will be back next Wednesday. You can see pictures of the house on the blog, which is mysteryoflifepodcast.co.uk. You can follow us on Instagram at the Mystery of Life Pod. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back with you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.